Welcome to another episode of Real People, Real Stories, where we provide you with compelling tales from everyday people just like you. I'm your host, John Wendell Adams, author of the novels Betrayal and PayBack, along with the soon-to-be-released novel, Ruthless. You can always find me by going to john@johnwendelladams.com. So for the next 23 minutes, let's get to today's guest. Given all that he was doing for media personalities, became sort of the face of the Oscar, if you will. Hey, Cleo.
Hi. How are you,
man?
John?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. You look fantastic.
I was going to say the same thing about you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just checking. I wear about a 42 long in a jacket, so, I mean, if it fits, no? Okay, well, you can't fault me for trying, right?
I'm like a 36 short or something.
Okay,
You're taller than me, John. You're a bigger guy than I
well. Well, look, thanks for agreeing to come on the show. I really appreciate that. I'm so looking forward to our discussion today, right? And do me a favor before we get too far along here. Tell the audience who you are, what part of the country you live in, and maybe what you do.
Well, I appreciate you having me, John. It's really wonderful to be a part of this project that you're launching. So my name is Cleo Medina. I am speaking to you from north of Chicago. And, I'm a sales professional. I've been doing this for 20 years.
The longer I get to know you, the more I am enamored with your ability to communicate. And, when we were talking about this compelling story, which is really about your dad, before we get too far along here, so that people aren't sort of tripped up, this is about Cleo Medina Sr.
When I called my dad and said, hey, here's what I'm doing, he said, why did they have you on? Why didn't they call me?
I love that. Well, you know what? The next time we have you on, we'll have you on and him on as well.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure he'd love that. That'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk, first of all, about your dad and the fact of he came to America some years ago. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your dad and spend a minute talking about him coming to America, just in terms of what transpired, etc.
Sure. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My dad and my mom's story is a very typical Mexican immigrant story. My father first came to the United States back in the 60s. And my father was in accounting in Mexico. He's an educated guy. And he booked a flight and flew to the States. He would come here over several times a year just to visit. He had friends here. He'd hang out. And then at some point, he just enjoyed being here through a series of events. He ended up becoming a citizen here. And so this was sometime in the 70s.
Right.
And this is when he made a home. This is where he made a home.
When we were talking, you also told me about him going back to Mexico and essentially marrying his hometown sweetheart, Maria.
My father was a disciplined guy, and he said, when I'm 30, I'm getting married. So when he's about 25 years old, he was visiting his sister in a small town in Mexico where they all grew up in. And he saw my mom. My mom was 15. My father was 25. My father's sister was married to my mom's brother. And so that's how he got to know her. And so she was 15. He said, when I turn 30, if she's still single, I'm going to come back and I'm going to marry that girl. And at 30, he went back and she was 20. And he ended up courting her, romancing her, and marrying her.
Holy cow. That's a great story.
Yeah, they got a pretty nice story.
Well, not only that, but it shows the dedication of your dad to say, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. And he sort of projected that into the future. That's great.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was my father.
Well, I mean, when you start to talk about his work life, this thing that about this coding technology that he spent time really getting educated around, spend some time talking about that and what that sort of led to, if you would.
So, my father, living here now, being a citizen here now, he always believed in education. So, he tried to to start a different career. So he ended up getting, this is the 70s, he ended up studying technology, which was coding, so creating codes, but it was very different type of technology that they used back then. And so he got a certificate, and he would tell me he'd go to these interviews, and he'd sit in these lobbies. He'd be his English would be broken. He'd be the only Hispanic there, and so he frankly never got an opportunity. And so he never ended up breaking into the technology field. And so he needed to provide. And so he ended up getting a job for a manufacturing company, a family-owned manufacturing company on the north side of Chicago.
As you described it to me, he really sort of started from the bottom and sort of worked his way up and eventually became the head of production.
He worked at that one employer for 40 years, started at the bottom, and then eventually, I guess they made him the overseeing production. My father had a real talent in managing different personalities and dealing with people, and he was so organized, and maybe the accounting mind. He was great at creating systems and templates. So he created all these different templates on how to produce the product, and which was a trophy maker, by the way. This company made trophies, and so his job was a tough job because they worked in an oven area. So it's 100+ degrees. They had to wear protective equipment, so it's already hot. They take this metal and they shove it into a oven, and then they work the metal to shape it, and it's a tough job. My father created a system that would produce, a quality product.
Tough job, right? Mm-hmm. And for him to find his way to the top of the production chain was really, I think, very incredible. But then there's one thing that happened that really changed things for your dad. It turned out that the company won a significant contract. Take me through what happened after that, or as a result of that.
So my dad, working at this plant, doing his hard labor, after about 15 years in, I guess, the company grew, and they ended up landing the Academy Award account, along with, I think they may also made the Emmys, and they might have made some other sports league trophies. The signature account was the Academy Award account, and so they started producing the Oscars from that trophy maker. And so my dad overseeing production. All of a sudden, my dad, around Oscar season, the January, February's of the year, my dad sort of became the celebrity there, because all media from all over the world wanted to do the back end report on, where does the Oscar come from, and walk us through the process of creating this thing. And so they pounced on this little manufacturing company on the north side of Chicago, and my dad sort of became the face of, all right, well, let me show you guys how this is made. Pretty incredible years for my dad. He had a lot of fun doing that.
To say that media personalities start to show up, asking how the whole thing transpired, he started doing tours, and eventually they gave him a nickname, right?
I think somewhere someone called him the Godfather of the Oscars. In Spanish, they probably call him the Padrino of the Oscars. So I can't recall if it was a nickname given to him by an English or Spanish media, but that was sort of the idea.
He becomes, in a sense, given all that he was doing for media personalities and such, became sort of the face of the Oscar, if you will. I just found it really fascinating. And, just a byline, I have to say this. We're doing this Oscar weekend. I mean, this couldn't be more tangential to what's happening in the rest of the world, if you will.
You scripted it that way, John.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think that was the case. But, when we were talking and realized, after we set the date that this was going to be Oscar weekend, I was like, oh my goodness, this is great.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Cleo Medina. Yeah, exactly. We advanced the story to 2007, right? 2007, 2008. What happens then?
So 2007, 2008, my dad's probably completed 40 years working. And it's fair to say my mom worked also in that facility with my dad. They worked alongside each other, worked there for 40 years. And so 2002, 2007, 2008, my dad's retiring. He decided, all right, I've had enough. I'm out. As a parting gift, the owners of the company, by that time it was a son of the original owner. And,
Sure.
apparently from what I understand, had a lot of affinity for my father. And they gave my mom and dad 2 tickets to attend the Academy Awards in
Holy
2007, to
mackerel.
walk the red carpet, paid them, gave them spending money, paid for their tux and their gown, and the hotel flight, limo, meals, all that jazz. And it was an incredible weekend for my father. They really, really loved that. I mean, to this day, I called my dad today and tell me again about your story, Dad. And he actually gave me some nuggets that he'd been holding back this whole time. But even to this day, my father is super excited. I think I
Sure.
talked to him at 1 o'clock and I said, Dad, I'm going to call you in an hour. And I didn't call him till like 6 or something. So he'd been waiting by the phone for 5 hours. That's how excited he was to talk to me about his story. Oscars is a very special time for my mom and dad, and tonight being the Academy Awards, it's a special night. They make it an event. They sit around, they watch nothing distracts them. They watch the Academy Awards, and it's a fun night.
We were able to get from you some photos
Yeah.
of what really transpired with your dad. I want to show those, and as I show them, what I'd like you to do is just kind of walk us through what it is that we're really looking at. Tell us what we see here.
Yeah, that's my dad on the left. And to the right, that's Sid Gaines. He's at the time, he was the president of the Academy for Motion Picture Arts. And, this was a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, something like that. My mom and dad arrived to LA on a Friday. And then my father had no idea. My father thought he was just there to show up on Sunday for the red carpet. Once my dad arrived, Sid Gaines was notified that the guy that actually makes the Academy Awards had arrived. So he arranged for my dad to be picked up for Saturday morning. And Saturday morning is the day that they do a parade in presenting the Oscars. It's the presenting of the Oscars. And so it's kind of a big deal. They got a lot of press there, and obviously the president is there. And so my dad and my mom arrive, and here there was a table full of Oscars, and so they've got, you don't see the press there, but there's press in front of Sid and my dad, and they're taking questions and taking pictures. And it was a special moment for Dad. There he is. That's the parade. As you can see, there's the press, and this is press from all over the world. On the right, part of the process there was those 2 Oscars that my dad is holding. One of them, from what I understand, is for Clint Eastwood. I think they were giving him some sort of a lifetime.
Achievement Award, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I want to say that's the case. One of those awards was for him, and Clint Eastwood was one of my father's favorite actors. All the great films that he had, my father loved watching them. So that was pretty exciting to know that he's delivering that.
Sure.
And so they've got, those are students from local schools, and again, there's about 50 or 60 statues there, and each one of them is obviously reserved for an artist. And that was the day where they're presenting the Oscars to be presented the next day.
What I'm doing really is I'm showing this sort of in reverse. So I want you to see this. Here's another one.
That's my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my dad's last year. So he attended the 2007 Academy Awards, and so my dad stuck around for the next year to ensure production got out. And so that's him. He's working on one of the statues. That picture was taken by a photographer. It's a press person, obviously, and that picture is available as a Getty image. But yeah,
right.
That's Dad working.
One of the things you said when we were talking is the Oscar was such a prestigious make, if you will, for that factory, and his role as the production head. Talk to me about the sort of the rigor that went into that. making sure that it was just right. I mean, we saw that last photo where he's holding the thing. You can feel just how fastidious he was associated with the Oscar. But just tell us a little bit about the process.
John, I wish I could walk you through the process myself. I don't know the exact process, but I know that it's a heavy, meticulous process that is incredibly difficult. To give you some perspective, my dad, the last year my dad worked on the statue was in 2008, and I think by 2010 or 11 that company had lost the account to another company, because I think 2009 or 2010, something to that. The Academy just would just send back a large portion of the statues because they were imperfect. A lot of imperfections. Quality wasn't great, because now you had new people actually producing the Oscars. My
Sure.
dad was gone. So that's just to give you an idea of just the kind of detail and just sort of that meticulous touch that you need to be able to work. And it's heavy work. You're working with the oven, you're gold plating this thing, you're using grinders. It's heavy work to get it just to be perfect. My dad and his team did that for 25 years.
And the thing that you described to me, if you will, is the fact that, well, I guess you just said it, is that if the Oscar was sent and it didn't fit the prescribed dimensions and specificity, that they would just send it back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
It really did require someone to be at the helm who had a real appreciation for what needed to transpire, and that was your dad.
My dad, he did the work for 40 years at this company, but he really took ownership of his space. He'd give his complete heart to the work, and I think the owner appreciated that about him. My mom still worked there after my dad retired, and as soon as the owner would find out that my dad's out in the parking lot waiting for his wife to come out of work, the owner would come running out just to say hello and catch up a little bit. For the first couple of years, you'd have the new leads or the new supervisors or new managers that took over would come rushing out when they know my dad's at parking lot, and they'd say, "Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that?" And my dad would, give them some guidance on what to do. But just to give you an idea, perspective on, how important my dad took his role and how much effort he put into to producing quality work every day.
Cleo, as we come to the end of our time together, I guess the one question I really want to ask you is, how did this entire experience really make you feel as a son, to know that your dad was really responsible for such a prestigious responsibility in this company? And really, the Academy Awards are frankly watched all over the world. I mean, high regard. Just describe how that entire experience really has made you feel.
Extremely, extremely proud of my father and my mother, because my mother was along there for the ride the entire 40 years, working alongside and at the trip. But there's so many different emotions and feelings after my dad retired, especially after that trip. My dad came home, and my dad had stories. I mean, just stories. I remember that Saturday afternoon where he's hanging out with the president of the Academy for a couple hours. They're doing, press, and they're talking. This guy Sid had a son, I think, living in Chicago, and they're exchanging stories. And so my dad goes, "Hey, Sid," he goes, "Sunday, when's the best time to arrive at the red carpet when all the other celebrities are going to be there?" And Sid's like, "You got to be there by 3:30. That's when everybody gets there." And so my dad had the limo scheduled, pick me up at my hotel at 3 p.m. or 3:30 so that I can get there right on time. He came out of his hotel, and people didn't know who he was. But the receptionist at the hotel was like, "Oh, that couple, they're going to the Oscars." And you had these guests at the hotel who had no idea who my mom and dad were. Like, "Hey, can I get an autograph? Can I get a picture with you?" Just because they were going to the Oscars, and they had a limo waiting for them. And they took that limo. They got to the Academy Awards. They get to the Kodak Theater. They're in line waiting for all these limos to pass. And when they finally get to the front and they come out of the limo, they look around and, oh, there's Eddie Murphy getting out of his limo. And I think Eddie Murphy was nominated that year for Dreamgirls, I think. And then, oh, look, there's Will Smith coming out of his limo. And, I think that year Will Smith was nominated for The Pursuit of Happiness. And so, they're walking out onto this red carpet. And so the red carpet is just one huge, entrance. And it's divided only by this velvet rope. And so on the one side, you've got my father and my mother and, guests of the celebrities, guests of producers, whatever, whoever's attending as a guest. On the other side, you've got the actual celebrities, and then you've got press just taking pictures. My mom and dad, they're walking and they zero in on their favorite celebrities. And so they just stop and go. They just stop, go. So the celebrities stop to take pictures, they're stopping there. I remember they come back with these stories. My mom was like trolling Leonardo DiCaprio. She's like right behind him, trying to get his attention. And she's just like, he's the most beautiful thing in the world.
I love
like,
that.
And she's telling me that. I'm like, Mom, I'm your son. I thought I was the most beautiful thing.
I love that.
Penelope Cruz, I think she was nominated for, she had a movie called Volver that was nominated. And so she was on the red carpet taking pictures, and Mom's going like this to her, trying to get her attention from across the velvet rope.
That's funny.
And, Penelope Cruz is just, trying to stay focused on the press. And then my dad, he was just zeroed in on Natalie Portman, and he just fell in love with her. I mean, she's a beautiful, beautiful actress, but my dad just couldn't stop staring at her. And I think she noticed him staring, as my dad tells me the story, and she didn't want to make him feel bad, I guess, because she said hello, and she reached out and actually touched his hand. And he was just like, wow. He was like, I want to keep staring, but now I just feel weird. So I'm going to do everything not to stare. And so now they're walking, stopping and going. And it took them like an hour or so to walk down that carpet. But when they get to the end, there's the entrance to the theater. And now they come into the theater, and I think it's 2 or 3 levels. And so when they enter into the lobby, there's a huge bar, and they're serving champagne, wine, and so all the celebrities are there, and all the celebrities are greeting each other. Hey, what's up? How are you? I haven't seen you. What are you working on? Good to see you. And they're all catching up. And then you've got this couple in the corner of the bar, just standing there, just watching. And that's my mom and dad. They're just trying to sit, and they'd come in, they'd get in. They're probably like 5'5". Right, so they'd sneak in between people, and they're just at the bar, looking right and left to see
that's great.
who they listen to. And then when they realize there's another bar on the second floor, they're running upstairs to catch the other bar to see who's up there. And now they're at the second bar upstairs, and so that was the night. They had a great night. You know what? One really great story is on the flight back, Jennifer Hudson, I think she won that night.
Oh yeah, she won a support. Yeah, for Dreamgirls. That's right. Yeah.
Obviously, Jennifer Hudson is from Chicago.
Right.
And so she's on the flight that my dad's on. My dad has no idea how the flight attendants knew that he was, part of the Oscar,
experience.
Event. They had no idea why and how.
Right.
But apparently they notified Jennifer Hudson that the guy that actually makes the Oscars and who attended the ceremony is here. And so she asked to be introduced to my dad. So they introduced them. My dad got to hang out with her for a while, in flight. And he was, talking to her. And my dad was like, oh, she's just so gracious. She's just a sweetheart. He's like, hey, listen. And she's asking all these great questions about how do you make the Oscar and this and that. And my dad said, if you want a tour, just call me. So my dad gives her her phone number and address. He's like, just call me. I'll call me ahead of time. I'll make sure that we give you the best reception, that we have everything ready to give you and your team a tour. And I think she might have called my dad and actually made an appointment. I believe that's the story, that she called, made the appointment, and then she had to cancel. But that she was so gracious. She called and said, I'm so sorry I can't make it. Something that just, I can't break But she didn't have to. She didn't have to call. And she was
Yeah.
just so gracious about it. My dad remembers that. And then one thing my dad says is like, I'm sitting there talking to her, and this whole time I had a camera in my pocket. And I didn't realize that I didn't take a picture until I got off the plane and realized, oh, I didn't grab my camera. Oh, because he could have taken a picture. But
Sure.
My dad tells these stories with such great detail and such excitement. And for my father to have worked, mom and dad to have worked for 40 years, very difficult work, and to do it for the benefit of their children, myself and my sister.
Right.
It's such a great, wonderful feeling that he finished his tenure there happy and feeling valued, feeling appreciated. And it's, you don't hear that very often. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful experience to hear. And I felt very proud of my father, because, believe it or not, one of his greatest achievements, from Mexico to Hollywood is what I call it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And
I love that.
I tell my dad, you should write a book, Dad. But yeah, very proud of my dad. Great sense of joy to hear my dad's stories over and over again.
That would be a great title for a book or a screenplay, for that matter. Yeah, from Mexico to Hollywood. I love that.
Why not?
Cleo, I said this really at the top of the show, and that is, I really appreciate you coming on and telling your dad's story. The truth is, as time goes on, what I'd like to do is to have you and your dad actually come back, and, there's probably some other stories that he'll end up telling, but thank you. I really appreciate hearing about Cleo Medina Sr. and your mom, Maria, as they spent their 40 years, and really the highlight of those 40 years, and all that transpired in Hollywood. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on and be a part of Real People, Real Stories. So be sure to thank your dad for giving you all those insights. And the very next time you come on, I'd really like to have Senior come as well.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. I appreciate it.
All right.
Hope to see you soon.
Okay, you bet. Listen, have a great day, and thanks again. Oh, make sure you go and watch the Oscars now.
My wife's waiting for me. That's what we're doing. So thanks so much.
All right, you bet. Bye now.
Take care.
You can always find me by going to john@johnwendelladams.com.